What's up guys, the full chapter and English translations have been released for Record of Ragnarok chapter 52. I'm not going to talk about anything that happens in chapter 53 in today's video, so yeah, stay tuned for whenever the translation and my video drops for that. But yeah, this chapter featured a lot of hype, some more reveals regarding Hajun, not too much, but a few interesting things to discuss, and some insanity near the end of the chapter regarding our boy Buddha. Subscribe if you're a fan of Record of Ragnarok. I cover this series a lot on this channel. Leave a like to help the video out, and yep, let's begin. It begins with us seeing the clash between Buddha and Hajun, with Buddha's weapon getting around halfway through Hajun's arm, that's cutting wise, and Hajun piercing Buddha right through his stomach. But we actually see Hajun getting scared and freaking out a little bit, because regardless of the amount of damage Buddha has received, he isn't backing down whatsoever, with us getting the following inner monologue from Hajun. Where does he find such energy? When he's on the verge of, and then gets cut off by the mad lad Buddha, saying, "What, you scared?" Buddha's lines throughout this chapter are honestly top tier, and I think it's safe to say at this point, Buddha is my second favorite character in all of Record of Ragnarok. And of course, after Buddha says that, it triggers Hajun somewhat, and this is where we learn more about him, which is pretty interesting. He says, "Do not get ahead of yourself. Now that I have met upon the perfect soil," remember the soil is referring to Zero's body, "I am the Supreme Being. I will surpass my past self." And this is where we get a flashback when Hajun was destroying part of the underworld. We see him kinda melting away, revealing to us that he wasn't actually defeated and that his body couldn't withstand his incredible strength, which kinda resulted in him blowing up, and then the remains were collected by Beelzebub, as we learned last chapter, and entered inside of Zero. And now his body can handle his incredible strength and can potentially go all out, and that also explains why he was testing his new body out in the early portions when he first arrived. So yep, that's pretty good. That's most things I'm thinking we're going to get about Hajun's backstory and where he actually came from, until maybe Beelzebub reveals some more stuff in the future. We have them two getting ready to clash again, with Buddha talking more shit, saying "you're way weaker than Zero," which of course triggers Hajun quite a bit, but regardless they start clashing again, and regardless of Buddha's insane injuries, he's still able to be relative enough to Hajun to block and parry most of his attacks at this point, which is pretty incredible, and this shows how much of a beast Buddha truly is. From there we cut to the Greek god gang, with Ares talking about Buddha's future vision not working now and that he's sustained major injuries that he's going to lose soon. And then probably one of the funniest panels in all Record of Ragnarok, just look at Ares' face here, with Hades talking more shit to him, always shitting on Ares, calling him a fool and saying, "Look at Buddha's eyes, he hasn't given up yet," and Zeus agreeing, saying he's waiting for a one-shot comeback with his, powerful move we saw last chapter. So regardless of it not looking so good for Buddha right now, he still has his eye on victory. We see them two clashing, speeding around everywhere around the ring. Buddha is somewhat struggling still, but he's not giving up, which actually strikes fear and makes, as Hades states, afraid of Buddha. So regardless of Hajun clearly being stronger than Buddha at this point, the fact that Buddha isn't giving up is making him afraid, and that makes him question who he is, like saying, "I am the Supreme Being." Then out of nowhere he decides to rip off his somewhat injured arm and transform that arm into a handheld weapon, which looks like this fusion of a fork and a sword, with a very badass panel of him pulling it out. We have him powering up his new sword and new attack, with Buddha powering up his scythe-based attack, which he was able to injure Hajun with before. Them two get ready to clash. We get a named attack from Hajun, Blaze of Glory, again a very sick panel with this new sword, and he actually cuts the scythe off of Buddha's weapon, so this new sword is more powerful than the previous weapon Hajun morphed his arm into. Of course, once he breaks the scythe, this freaks various characters out with the amazing reaction shots we always love to see. And we also get to see Okita Tsuji, Izanami, Sasaki and Sasaki's Valkyrie, which is pretty cool. Haven't seen them in a while. On that note, Okita Tsuji is pretty much one of the only humans we've actually seen quite a bit of him before his actual fight in Ragnarok. I hope they end up doing this for other future human fighters or gods prior to the actual fight, so we can see the reactions and learn more about them before they actually fight. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So Buddha's weapon is transferring back to its original staff, and then without any delay, Hajun follows up with another attack and actually breaks Buddha's divine weapon staff thing, or Buddha's sixth realm staff. As they say, it's been completely destroyed and Buddha has been knocked to the ground. We also cut to Beelzebub here, who's just chilling, eating an apple, just enjoying the, sight of his experiment and how well it's going. I'm hoping we learn more about him sooner rather than later. We cut to everyone praying for Buddha's safety, Hajun walking up to finish Buddha, and then out of nowhere, as Buddha is about to fall unconscious, he sees like this mysterious light, which I believe links into his soul viewing ability that we learnt about a few chapters ago. And he actually reaches out to the light and his hand is grabbed by someone else. After that, Buddha awakens. He starts to rise up before Hajun can finish him, beginning to talk. You know what it takes to confront your own weakness, to fight back against your inexperience. We also get a cut to the other sages like Jesus, which of course is always hype. We have Buddha rising up and says, "It takes puberty. You don't have that, and that's why you're weak." And we actually see that he has Zero's Misery Cleaver, and that he's going to fight together with Zero. Fates intertwined, and a new divine weapon. Divine Weapon Lotus Volume. People, as soon as the rules came out, were saying this is an ass pull, doesn't make any sense, but we actually learnt about this back before Buddha's fight when he had the interaction with Loki, that Buddha has a similar ability to the Valkyries and perhaps a more powerful version of that. With Brynhilde saying that Buddha has pretty much changed Zero's divine weapon to create the ultimate divine weapon, which none but he who has attained the great nirvana in the pure lands could create. So only Buddha can create this, the great nirvana sword Zero. So the fusion of Buddha's power and Zero into this lotus weapon, which actually does grab the attention of Beelzebub, but we don't get any lines from him. And that is pretty much the end of the chapter. We see that all the lucky gods are within this sword, represented by the various, sins on the sword here. Looked pretty badass, to be honest. And then the final line of the chapter is Buddha telling Hajun that it's divine retribution, which of course has been Hajun's line throughout the fight. So pretty hype. It was kind of weird how Buddha actually got the Misery Cleaver, whether or not he was given to him by Zero in that weird scene prior. The transformation of the weapon makes sense, as all this was hinted at earlier, but still that whole exchange there was a little bit strange and a little bit, power of friendship-esque, if I'm being honest. But yeah, very cool weapons, and that's pretty much everything. Hope you enjoyed. As always, shout out to the people who support the channel via the Patreon. Absolute mad lads. Stay tuned for my chapter 53 review. It'll come out whenever the translations drop. As always, links are posted in the Discord. And yep, that's it guys. Peace.